Hello, my name is Venkataraman Srinivasan, and my nickname is Sinu. And I am from the IIT batch of 1961, entered and graduated in the class of 1966. In those years, IIT BTech program used to be a 5-year program. My branch was mechanical engineering. So let me sort of give you a feel for how I got to IIT, which is itself an interesting story. I come from a town called Pudukkottai, which is about 50 kilometers from Trichy and about 100 kilometers from Madurai. And so I studied there up to my high school. And I had applied to the engineering colleges in Tamil Nadu at that time. So there were about, I should tell you again, this is, remember, this is back in 1960-61. And IIT itself was started only in 1950, IIT Madras rather, was started only in 1959. So I am the third batch. I was one of the third batch entering IIT Madras. So I applied to these colleges, engineering colleges, only in Tamil Nadu, mainly because I studied in a Tamil medium and I did not know other languages. A little bit of English I knew, but beyond that I did not know. And unfortunately, I was rejected into admission into all the engineering colleges. I'm smiling now, but at that time it was devastating. It was just absolutely awful that I should have been rejected. I have a hypothesis as to why that happened, but I won't go into that now. But in any case, so what do? It turns out, as I told you, IIT Madras itself was started only a year earlier, and the joint entrance exam, our batch, if I'm not mistaken, the ones entering in 1961, was the very first batch. So in those days, there was no preparation courses, etc. And even if there were any, nothing would have been there in my hometown, which was a population of about 45,000 people. So there was no way I could have done. So what I did is I went to my batch BSc students in physics, math, and chemistry, borrowed their books, sort of read on my own, and appeared for the entrance exam, and apparently did very well to have been admitted to the area where I wanted to major in, which is mechanical engineering. So in fact, my admission to IIT Madras is very critical in my life because, as I told you, I really wanted to do engineering, but I was rejected to these colleges in Tamil Nadu. And luckily, there was IIT Madras, which went based only on merit. And luckily, I did very well in that exam, and that is how I got into IIT Madras. Our batch was the very first batch to go, even in the first year itself, into the hostels in IIT Madras. The previous batches, the first year they spent across the campus in something called the Central Other Research Institute, somewhere there. But we entered IIT Madras directly in the first year. My hostel was Krishna Hostel. I understand now it is the postgraduate hostel, but that was a hostel to which we were assigned. I had a wonderful time at Krishna Hostel and at IIT Madras. I finally, first of all, a few things. First of all, for the first time, I'm sort of encountering students from other parts of India, speaking all these other languages. So that was kind of interesting and learning. And secondly, I made very good friends with my classmates. There was a batch size at that time was only around 140, if I'm not mistaken. And in particular, became very friendly with the students who were in the same wing of the Krishna Hostel. So it turns out, out of that 140 students, about 6 of us are actually at the San Francisco Bay Area, and 3 of us are literally from the very same wing of Krishna Hostel. So what a coincidence. So we are we get together quite often. In fact, we had a Zoom meeting today with the 6 of us, and actually one other IIT Madras graduate joined from Denver, Colorado too. So we are very friendly. So I had a wonderful time there with I think probably the most fond memories are with my classmates, and particularly the close friendships I developed at IIT Madras. The Krishna Hostel also had a wonderful mess. The food was really excellent. The other side of mine was, I also was, there is something called the National Cadet Corps, which may well be there, NCC. And I was a senior under officer in what is called the Signal Corps at that time. And so that was another pastime or sort of a side activity that I did. I used to play ball badminton in those days. The people don't play ball badminton in the US nowadays, so I don't play that anyway, but so that I used to do. But most importantly, I would also say that I really loved the courses at IIT Madras. I think the quality of teaching was clearly, of course, much, much better than what I was used to at my local college in Pudukkottai, or high school in Pudukkottai. Secondly, I particularly loved the classes in physics and math and mechanical engineering, which was my specialty. And in particular, in my last year, final year, we had a specialization. Mine was in machine design. And essentially, we had a free rein in terms of doing the design. And with very little coordination, with very little advice from professors, really, because there were no particular experts in the area of design. I was designing a steam turbine. Of course, I didn't build it, but I designed it and visited with the Neyveli Lignite power plant to get an understanding of how the turbines actually worked. And anyway, I had a good experience with machine design that way. So I have very fond memories of IIT, but I would want to emphasize one thing particularly, namely that one of the things we learned, I didn't sort of learn this particular terminology at that time, is mathematical modeling of real phenomena. So, it may be the movement of an object, you may follow the Newton's second law or whatever, and then solve a differential equation and locate where the object is going to be at time t, given its location at time 0. So I think the thinking is that there is a physical situation, there is a real situation. And the mathematical model that we have is only a model of that. It's an approximation. It may be 90% accurate or 80% accurate, sort of varies from places to the other. In this case, for example, the movement of the, we normally don't take friction into account in exact calculations of friction. And so if you don't take into account, of course, this is going to be an approximate thing, even if the friction is pretty extremely slight. That's an example of it. So this idea of mathematical modeling came to me in very good stead as I left IIT Madras. From IIT Madras, I moved on to, I worked for 2 years at Larsen & Toubro in Powai, Bombay, in the switchgear division, particularly in production planning and control. And it was quite interesting because some of these ideas in terms of mathematical modeling came handy there. And that's where I realized that my knowledge, that whatever I was doing at Larsen & Toubro, I just did not know enough of the basics of it. So I was reading books by myself, and I realized that I really needed to study something more in order to do whatever it is that I was doing at Larsen & Toubro in a better, more efficient way. So for that reason, I applied to various American universities. I asked Larsen & Toubro for a leave of absence. They gave me readily a leave of absence for 2 years with, of course, no salary, but that was okay. And so I went to join the Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I went there with the full intention of just doing a master's program in business administration. I was ready to go into industrial engineering or business administration because I had already moved, by the way, you notice here, from mechanical engineering into production planning, which is kind of related, and production planning into manufacturing and business. So these are all kind of gradual movement, but at the end of the day, the movement from mechanical engineering into business is significant. And even more, the variation movement into eventually where I ended up, which is quantitative market research. The reason I ended up in quantitative market research was because of a roommate who was there at Carnegie Mellon, who was interested in marketing. I was in operations research. That turned out to be what I was studying. Anyway, I went there to do an MS program only. But after one semester of taking classes, many of my professors said, you really should be doing a PhD, not the MS, because of the creativity you show in terms of how to sort of approach new problems and things that were not there already, were not taught to you, but you were able to kind of discover some of these things by yourself. So at the end of the first semester at Carnegie Mellon, I switched from the master's program to the PhD program. My PhD was in operations research, in particular in something called transportation problems in operations research. I did a thesis on something called parametric programming of transportation problems. But the more important thing that happened during that time was that I had a roommate who was interested in marketing, as I said, and I was interested in operations research. And we used to talk in terms of the problems he was interested, how it could be solved using the mathematical modeling from operations research. So we ended up doing collaborating, and the work we did at that time already got published by the time, soon after we got, both of us graduated from PhD program. And that work turned out to be a very important work in my thing in terms of market research. So even though I went in there planning to do a master's, I ended up doing a PhD. It became clear by this time my interest was actually in research. And people probably in Larsen and Toubro would not know what to do with me, having learned all these advanced materials. But anyway, my heart was actually in research. And at that time, at least, the Indian Institutes of Management were not particularly known for research. This is changing. There is also a school called the Indian School of Business. So research is, in fact, becoming more so in India.